Hey guys, how's it going? Ghostly Rich here today, and today we're going to be talking about your cable system inside your house. So you have cable boxes, maybe you were just watching something on your TV, or you went to turn it on the next day and now it's no longer working. And you're like, what is going on? Why isn't my cable system working? This is driving me nuts. Well, let's start. Nowadays, cables are much more crazier than just something that comes in from the wall. Everything's through the internet as well. So, first thing you want to do is, if you have certain no signals, maybe you were just watching a program, now it says no signal, or anything like that on your TV. There are multiple things. First thing you want to do is make sure your TV's on the right input. This changes depending on the TV you have. Most TV, there's an input button or a source button. Unless you have a newer TV like a newer Samsung. If you have that little black remote, chances are you have to hit the home button, scroll all the way to the left, go to source. It actually says source, press up. There's a directional pad, press up, and then go over to HDMI 1, 2, or 3, whichever one's highlighted. If none of them are highlighted, this is a pretty good sign that maybe a cable's been disconnected, or if you're cabling, check the HDMI on the back of the TV and HDMI on the back of the cable box. If that is all fine and dandy, everything's good there, and your cable box, its power light is on, this means that chances are your cable box might have hiccuped. This is the first step of it. You're going to go to your cable box, unplug it. Literally leave it for 30 seconds to a minute, plug it back in. It should work now. If your cable box does not start working right away, that's fine. It usually takes, give it 5 minutes to boot up. Now, let's say you do this and it works fine. Good things to note is, like, for us in Canada, we have TELUS. TELUS boxes, I can usually tell if it's frozen or hiccuped, because if you try to press menu right away and it doesn't load, I just unplug the cable box and I plug it back in. 90% of the time this is going to fix it. Now, if you have that rare one where you've powered up and you power on your TV and you have to power off your TV and then power back on, or anything crazy like that, or basically anything along those lines, or you're just not having any luck, the cable system is just not coming, or maybe your internet's also failing, first thing you're going to do, you're going to start at the router, which is, I'll give you an example. This is an internet router. What you're going to want to do, you're going to disconnect this if you have one. This is a separate router. Usually your internet service provider will give you a router, and then if you buy an aftermarket one, then you have to unplug that one as well. Unplug the one that your internet service provider gave you for your internet. You're going to unplug that from power. Unplug this one. If you have a wireless access point, these are these little discs. 90% of you won't have these, but if you do have a wireless access point, disconnect those as well. If you have a switch looks like this. They range from 5 to 25 to 50 ports. Unplug that as well. Then you're going to go around your house and unplug all your cable boxes. After you've done this, just going to bring you back over here. After you've done this, next thing you're going to do is plug in your router first, which was the black one from your internet service provider. You're going to let that boot completely. Give it 5 to 10 minutes. After you've given it 5 to 10 minutes, plug in your aftermarket one and your switch. After you plug both of those in, give it about 3 or 4 minutes. Everything will boot up. The switch doesn't take as long, but your aftermarket router will take a second, and it might have to do a firmware update. It's pretty easy. It usually has an internet and a Wi-Fi. Let that glow. After those two have loaded up, go and plug in all your wireless access points if that is part of your program, if you actually have those. If you do, plug those in. After you've done that, you've plugged those in, your Wi-Fi extenders, whatever else, now you're going to go to what I like to call your mother box, which is your PVR. A lot of the cable boxes nowadays have a big main box, but this is the thing that stores all your recordings. It's usually the bigger box, and then you have a bunch of small ones, which might be wireless, or they're just smaller boxes. You want to plug in that PVR, which is the big one, first. Plug it in. give it 5 to 10 minutes, press power on your TV, and wait for that thing to boot up. Once it does and you have picture on, keep in mind that a lot of cable boxes won't automatically turn on after they've booted up. You actually have to still power them on. So for Shaw, a lot of the times you have to wait until it has a time on it or anything like that. But basically once it's booted up, boom, you're ready to go. If you have to, press the power button on the front of it after it's fully loaded after like 5 minutes, and then you'll get picture on the TV. Once you've done that, now you're going to go to your slave boxes, which are those little small boxes all over the house, and plug those in. After you've plugged those in, your system has now done a full reset. This fixes it almost every time, but it's extreme. That's why I'm telling you to do this, because it resets everything. If there's firmware updates, it's going to recheck for firmware updates for your entire cable box system and for your internet router and your internet systems. So even your wireless access points are going to check. Everything like that is going to check for internet. That should fix everything. If at this point you don't have it fixed, you've checked the line going to your TV, you've made sure that line's you double checked it, switch out that HDMI cable. If if it's ran through the wall, take a long one, buy a long one if you have to, plug it into the back of the TV, plug it into your cable box, and see if that fixes the issue. If it does, then you know you have a bad HDMI cable. They go bad after a while, they deteriorate. Or maybe you got a new cable box and it's got a new like 4K HD CP 2.2 compliant, all that other stuff. That's why you might need a new cable. I know this sounds like rocket science. I'm just trying to break it down for you. You can fix this yourself. You don't have to wait for the technician. But right now, if at this point you've done everything I've said, now it's time to call your technician in if you've done all that. And it's definitely on their side. At least if you tell them you've done this, that you've literally unplugged absolutely everything in the system and you've started from the router forward, at this point, it's on their end. They either have to send out a technician to see the line coming into the house, or they have to swap out your gear because your main PVR box has died. Anyways, I hope this helps you out. Again, it might seem like it's just one box. I've seen this before, where one box doesn't work, but the rest of them work fine. It can still originate from the main box. Try unplugging, like I said, all of it, and then plugging it all back in the exact order I just told you. It goes again, just so you know, you plug in your router from your internet service provider. If you have an aftermarket router, wireless access points, or an internet switch like the one that I showed you, you will then plug those in. And also a wireless extender, because that's another one. Plug in all those. After you've plugged in all of those, then you're going to plug in your main cable box, which is your PVR, DVR. It's usually the biggest one. For era systems, usually it's like, I don't know, yay big. And then they have a whole bunch of smaller boxes that are like this big, or it's noticeably different. And if you have wireless boxes, that is definitely not your PVR. 90% of the time, it's not your PVR. Maybe now you're watching this video and it's in the future and it is. Anyways, I hope this helped you fix it. Know I've ranted a little bit, but I wanted to make sure I was in depth for you. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day.